Hope everybody's doing well today. I want to welcome everybody to the Unimpressed podcast today. And today we have the founder and chief executive of Iternal Technologies, and I think I said that right, Mr. John Byron Hanby IV. Welcome, John. How you doing today?
Thank you, John. Great to be here.
We chatted a little bit before we started recording, and adding technologies to the end of this business name. How do you get away with that based on, personal beliefs?
My background was in corporate film production for a number of years. And this technology and this company, Iternal, were kind of a product of that. And over the years, one of the things that I started to get really excited about was how we could incorporate AI and automation to scale people and make people more effective. And so the idea behind Iternal was an evolution of my film production company. And the goal was really to make video content, whether it's for corporate purposes or otherwise, more accessible and scalable and personalized. And so there have been a number of technologies that we've built around that capability. And so that's where the technologies part comes from, Iternal Technologies.
The capabilities around this tech and this AI, explain that to me and how it relates to your book. Let's take the first step. How does that relate?
Well, I think that, we're in a very exciting time from a technology advancement standpoint. And I guess there could be an argument that's made that we've always been living in a technology advancement time that's been rather exciting, whether you go back to the 1940s, 1950s, or now today with AI. And ultimately, everything that's being produced has a lot of unknowns surrounding it. We're at the frontier of what is possible. ChatGPT took the world by storm. There have been, a tidal wave of new technologies that have come out just in the last couple of months. It's rather staggering. And I think that, with that in mind, there are a lot of questions that are being asked around, how do we use AI and these new technologies in an ethical way, in a responsible way, in a secure way, and do it with, keeping the individual and, true to the human condition in terms of how we interact with each other from a social standpoint. So these are a lot of questions. There are a lot more that are floating around out there. It's actually the topic of a new book that I'm writing. But ultimately, as people start to look outward into asking these questions about technology and where things are going, I think that it's also important for people to have the opportunity to look inward and explore themselves and understand what motivates them, what causes them fear, what gets them excited and passionate. And a lot of times, at least in my experience going through the American education system, is that not a lot of time is spent looking inwards. We spend a lot of time reading and learning, the great literatures of American history, but ultimately, all of those questions and analysis that occur never focus inward. And so the intent behind my book, Your Answers, was really to point the lens back at ourselves and give us the opportunity to ask ourselves critical questions. And, in a lot of cases, when I first started this process, I didn't have the answers. And that was kind of a scary and jarring thing. And ultimately, over time and many years of exploration, I ended up getting some answers that I was pretty happy with. And that certainly helped me in my career and where I want to go in life. And I thought I'd share it with the rest of the world.
Well, it's funny. I've been talking to an educator, Esther Wojcicki, I think her name was. She's at Stanford. And I talked to Laura Geisner-Otting on the podcast. And there's a very similar thread there that kind of relates to what you're talking about when you talk about the education system and how the education system is set up, for these kids to hit a grade. And when they want to just hit a grade and they read information and they don't relish that information, you're not building any value or retaining any information for yourself just because you're trying to hit a number. In your philosophy and your thought process, understanding that, how do people look within and how do they understand themselves to recognize maybe these nuances that they went through in life that they didn't realize were crafting who they were, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think it's a great question. And the word that comes to mind as you're asking it is really curiosity. Right? I think that a lot of times today, especially, there's a lot of noise going on in the world around us, whether that's political noise or interpersonal relationship noise, financial pressures. All of these different things can be difficult and distracting. And whether you're a young person growing up or you're an adult in the workforce, there's a lot of stuff out there that can cause those distractions. And I think that I believe that humans are innately creative, innately exploratory, and like to seek and discover new things. And I think that also a lot of these pressures that exist in the world kind of suppress and challenge a lot of that opportunity. And so, there's not a magic formula for any one person, I don't think, to, start to voyage down that path. But I think that, the goal behind the book was really to collect a series of questions that are exploratory, that kind of spark that curiosity and give it an opportunity where, maybe you don't have 7 or 10 hours a day to think about this stuff, and that's okay, right? You can use a book like this, or many out there as well, where you could open up a page, take a look at one of the questions, and spend 10 or 15 minutes thinking about it and seeing if there's value there. And over time, I think that starts to build a habit and a practice of more effective self-awareness. And, the more aware that you are about yourself, your emotional state, and what's going on around you, the more control we have over how we react to those things and the decisions that we make, and how those decisions ultimately inform our paths.
Do you feel like going through this, do you feel like you go through a sensitive time? Do you feel like trying to control your feelings creates higher emotions, and those higher emotions you have to control? I mean, what's that thought process?
I think that everybody goes through difficult times. And if you haven't yet, you probably will, unfortunately. I certainly have, and everybody else that I know has experienced some kind of hardship and difficulty. And, those trying times are really what forge us and make us the people that we are. And how you deal with them is, very important and very critical in terms of, the person that you become on the other side of those things. You can either embrace them or take on the challenge, or you can let them, engulf you in darkness. And that's a scary thing in some concepts, but it's also a potentially beautiful thing, because, it's through the hardest times that the best people are formed. And ultimately, if there's a way and a path to, facilitate that through self-awareness and making good decisions, even in the darkest times, or, being able to draw upon that light within yourself or in the people that you care about around you, I think that can certainly help you move through and flourish on the other side.
What is your passion? I mean, what is your drive by doing this? And like, where's your family from and so forth?
Yeah, so I grew up in Austin, Texas. I've lived here pretty much my entire life. My passion, had I answered and been asked that question many years ago, it would have been a very different answer, and it's certainly evolved over time. When I was young, I remember sitting in my dad's office, and he had a book, and it was on nuclear physics, and that's what we would read together. And I'm no nuclear physicist. I'm certainly not an expert in it, but I loved the concept of engineering and building things, and I was fascinated, and still am, by math and physics. And so naturally, I thought that my parents were going to want me to have a traditional career with a 9-to-5 job, and I was going to go to college and get a degree and then go do whatever it was that I wanted to do. I loved building computers. And in fact, I was building supercomputers in my teens, specifically to do graphic animation and visual effects for movies, because that was my passion. And so naturally, I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer and go do that as a career. And then what ended up happening is I was a sophomore in high school at the time, and I was given a project by one of my outstanding teachers. And the project was read Homer's Odyssey and create a short film about one of the chapters. And this was right up my alley, because I loved making movies. And so I ended up going to my teacher, and I asked him, I said, hey, I don't want to make a chapter in this book. I'd love to make the entire book into a short film. Are you okay with that? And he said, John Byron, if you turn something in by the end of the year, you go for it. And so I ended up spending 8 months of my life, nights and weekends and all of spring break with my friends, putting together this short film. It was the single biggest endeavor that I had done to date in my life. And going through that process, it was a wonderful learning experience because there was this awakening moment that I had towards the end of the project where I suddenly realized that this is what I love doing. I love creating, and I think I want to be a filmmaker. So I was walking one day with my dad, and I'd never had the career conversation with my parents before. And so it's kind of a scary thing. It ended up going okay, which was great. But I said, Dad, I don't think I want to be an electrical engineer. I want to be a filmmaker. And he looked at me and he said, John Byron, if you want to be a filmmaker and that's what makes you happy, you go do that. Pursue your passion. And so I did. I ended up starting a film production company. I ran that for almost a decade. And then a couple of years ago, about 5 years ago, actually now, I had an idea. I said, I wonder if we could automate this concept of film production. And, my new company, Iternal Technologies, and the AI and automation that we deliver was born at that moment. But over the years, as I kind of continued to grow up and mature and find myself, what I really realized is that these were all just different creative expressions for me and what I like to do. And what really got me excited, whether it was building computers or creating music videos or corporate film productions or this AI company that I'm running now, it's really about taking an idea, sometimes a really audacious and scary, complex idea, and working and churning and grinding and bringing it into reality, into something that I can share with other people.
How do you convert that? And what does that look like? I mean, how do you convert expression to AI and get it to function properly?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that it's about having the ability to speak both languages. I'm not a technical coding genius. I have an amazing team of people who are able to do that for me. I come up with some good ideas from a product standpoint, and I'm able to say, look, this is what I want this to be able to do, and here are the components. And I can get almost to that line, maybe a little bit over the line of what the technical implementation of that actually looks like. And then, my team of outstanding engineers is able to take that concept, that specification, and turn it into something. So to answer your question specifically, I think that the world around us is surrounded by mathematics and numbers. And I'm wearing the logo here. It's a fractal. And if you don't know what a fractal is, it's a mathematical shape. And they're found all throughout nature. Trees are fractals. Lightning is fractals. The concept of a fractal is you start with a shape, and that shape can branch off into new shapes. And each of those branches has additional branches, and it kind of just goes infinitely. Coastlines are another example, around the sea and a landmass. Those can all be modeled and described using fractals. And so the idea is, with so much being able to be represented through numbers and mathematics, to an extent, not 100%, but emotion and communication can be as well. And you mentioned the project that you're working on, finding that right audience. A lot of the work that we focus on is how do you communicate to that audience once you found them, right? And what are the different things that people are interested in based on their needs, desires, and expectations, right? So in the case of our company, if we're producing, let's say it's a sales or a marketing piece of content for a business to business type sale, somebody who's buying computers for on behalf of their organization, they're going to have a set of needs, a set of goals, and a desired outcome, right? And it's all about identifying the things that are most relevant to that person based on what you know about them or what they've shared with you, and then being able to tailor a message around that specific expectation. You don't want to hear things that you're not interested in. Nobody does, right? And so being able to provide the right information to the right person at the right time is something that is very desirable, regardless of where you're working.
Now, I wonder if the customer is not defined properly in the business.
So you're asking if they're unable to?
Well, what I'm saying is, let's say, obviously, if you approach a business and they have a customer base, do you look at that customer base and then home in on the overall customer, like a broad range, or you try to home in on a certain demographic? How do you pick? How does the AI pick what it's going to create?
So yeah, that's a great question. So really what we start with is, at a high level, how do you categorize the opportunities or the people that you are engaging with from a selling perspective, right? Typically, those things are, pretty high level. It's like, what industry vertical are you speaking to? Because you're going to speak differently to somebody who's in the retail or the manufacturing industry versus somebody who is in pharmaceuticals or healthcare or transportation and logistics, right? Different terminology, different set of problems, and so on. So that may be the first focus for how you're categorizing your opportunities. The second thing is the type of person that you're speaking with, right? Typically that can be boiled down to a job role or a persona, right? Again, speaking differently to a chief information officer versus a chief financial officer versus a CEO. Different levers, different mechanisms for what they care about and different business priorities. And the list goes on, right? You could talk about things like a product or a solution that you're going out to sell. There are specific value propositions that exist for that solution, problems that you're solving, right? So each of those different things are, components to inform the AI. And ultimately what you can do is you can build a profile around an individual. And it's not some like super sneaky dark art or anything like that. It's really simple information that you can collect. And oftentimes it's found right on their LinkedIn profile, based on, the company that they're working for, their job role, and then maybe a little bit about what they do at that organization. And from that information, you can actually start to identify the relevant content for that individual. And our technology works. We build a library of content. We call them idea blocks, and each block is a modular component. And our AI is able to identify and assemble all of those modular components together to create a beautiful, coherent deliverable. And that could be in any media format. So it may be a video or an audio message or a beautiful graphic design brochure, all with the click of a button.
What is some of the videos that these things are putting out? What do they look like?
So it looks like something you'd spend $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 with an advertising agency produce. You'll see some of them on LinkedIn right now. Dell is a big customer of ours, as is NVIDIA and AMD, and they've been using the technology for a variety of event invitations, product marketing, things like that. And I think the coolest thing about it is, they fit right in with everything else that you'd expect from a top tier corporation to produce and invest a lot of money in, when in reality, you're able to create a better customer experience at a reduced cost and engage at a more personalized and one-to-one level with all of your customers at a scale that was never before achievable.
So when you classify, I'm trying to look at the level of customer here with like a Dell.
Yep.
Are these business people? Are you like identifying one person and then creating something specifically for this one person you're trying to sell to or so forth? Or is this an overall thing?
So yes, to both. We're able to create that personalized experience for each individual person, but we're also able to do it at scale for all customers. Now, there are different stages of maturity, and not all of our customers are anywhere near that stage yet, because there's just so much opportunity across the board for this type of technology. But in the engagements that we have today, you can take and produce 1,000 videos for 1,000 people by simply uploading a spreadsheet or a data set and saying, I want these videos produced for these people. Here are the criteria. Click a button, wait 20 minutes, and you've got 1,000 videos, each of them completely personalized to the individual and relevant information for every single one of them that you can send out and circulate to the people.
You see this technology improving, and do you have any competition in the marketplace?
Yeah, it's in a really exciting place to be. The impact that we're seeing is just tremendous. A couple of fun statistics. I won't say who the customer was, but it's a big one. We did a campaign of personalized event invitations for one of these large, 50,000 plus attendee trade shows in Las Vegas. It's the biggest one of the year. And, a good click-through rate on a marketing campaign, actually opening up the email and then clicking on the link to go to the page, typically talking about like 2 to 8% is the industry average. depending on what's being talked about. We sent these personalized event invitations to 697 people. And of those 697 people, 96.4% of them clicked on the link to open the piece of content and viewed it. That's absolutely ridiculous. Like when we saw that statistic, it's what is that, like 12 times performance? It was, simply mind blowing. And now that's on the higher end. We don't see that for every single one of our campaigns. Typically, depending on how warm or cold the leads are, it's somewhere between a 40 to an 80% click-through rate. But that impact that we're seeing on the personalization side is tremendous. Because again, people tune out things that they're not interested in, right? But the things, if you can deliver something that's relevant and timely and valuable to the customer, that's game changing. And tailoring it specifically to what they're interested in is so powerful. So, whether it's that kind of performance or, the same thing is true with video content, right? We see on average a 13 times increase in engagement and watch time of a video simply by putting "Hi, John" at the beginning of the clip. And we can do way more personalization than that. There's a campaign that we did for NVIDIA that was announced publicly back in September of last year. Each video had 16 of these dynamic personalization elements, which you'd get ultimately a completely tailored, personalized experience for each person. But 13 times engagement for something like that, means you're clicking on the link and you're watching that. Overall, 13 times more than getting a generic piece of content. It's so powerful. Now, to answer the second component of your question, this is a new market. It's something that we've been working in and are honored and proud to be leading in for over 5 years now. We're a massive partner with NVIDIA. There's some exciting announcements coming up soon that I can't talk about yet. But ultimately, I think that we're in a place and fortunate to be leading what's going on right now in this space. And I think that gives us an enormous opportunity to set the tone and the stage for, what does responsible, secure, and scalable AI look like across the board, whether it's for consumer use or for enterprise. And we've got some exciting white papers and other information that will be released soon talking about the next generation, which is digital humans.
What is digital humans? What does that mean?
So as real as I am sitting in front of the camera here today talking with you, with my emotions, my inflection, my word choice sounding like me, we'll be able to create a digital version of me or of you or of anybody in a safe, secure, and compliant manner that respects the identity and privacy of the individual. And the value there of doing that is effectively being able to scale your best and brightest talent across an organization 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And one of the biggest challenges that we see in working with enterprise companies is that there are such talented people who have such deep knowledge in a given topic, but they only have so many hours in the day to be able to attend customer meetings, answer questions, and things like that. And with the advent of these new AI technologies, being able to be in a position where now suddenly that person is not limited by the physical world and can deliver information to multiple people at the same time if necessary, while also maintaining that control from a compliance and privacy standpoint, is going to be very advantageous to the organizations that adopt it first.
Now, if you looked at this from a creator standpoint, have you thought about where this fits in entertainment? Have you thought about that area? And when you said NVIDIA, who's NVIDIA? What do they do?
So NVIDIA is one of the top 10 most valuable companies in the world. They are leading and have been leading for almost 2 decades, the AI revolution. So you may most commonly hear about their graphics cards that go in computers that are produced for gaming, among other purposes. But they are also an enterprise technology company. So they build high-performance computing systems that can be used to run these highly complex AI technologies.
Interesting. My brain is turning here just based on stuff that's in my head. I found out I do quantum physics, and I reverse engineer everything. And I don't know. I don't want to speak properly, but maybe there's a side conversation with you, and maybe we could put that out there. But if you look at things from a creator's mindset and instead of a discovery mindset, I think you might could take that thing, I don't know, to a whole nother level that's not even there yet, if that makes sense. When you think about, what's his name, Elon Musk, and then you think about things, the things he's doing with the link, and then metaverse, and we really haven't settled into the AI piece yet. Do you think they put the cart before the horse? Because I think what you're doing, in a way, kind of trains people with their sensibilities in a way. And did these companies jump out there too soon, you think?
Well, I think that, to answer the first part of your statement there, I completely agree that, connecting, different disciplines and having an open mind to explore these areas that may not at the surface be connected, but actually are. I mean, that's where innovation and inspiration come from. How do you get something that is complex and, seemingly isolated and connect it with something else in another field that, is speaking on the surface different languages, but in reality, there's a similar train of thought, right? Yeah, similar energy that occurs that you can somehow, if you can have an open mind or the ability to explore both of those concepts and hold them in mind at the same time, suddenly now there's an inspiration, and in a way, that's kind of what the birth of my company, Iternal, was, because I'd lived in this creative space of producing films and creative content for many years. And then I bridged that with the help of an incredible team with this concept of enterprise AI and technology, and also communications, right? And those three things together, you wouldn't think at the onset that they fit together, because they don't really. But we figured out this kind of magic combination that ended up making it work and work in a really unique way. And I think that on the second part of what you're talking about, there are a lot of innovations that are coming out today that are incredibly exciting. And I think that, like you said, now more than ever, it's imperative that, people continue to pay attention and have these types of dialogues around what do we really want to use this technology for? And how do we do it in a way that's going to benefit our future generations? And I think one thing that I'm writing about in my next book is our lives, for a lot more ways than we would initially expect, are already controlled and governed by AI. And that's a very scary thing, but it's true. Every time you open up a social media app, or you swipe right or left on a dating profile application, or going to search something on Google, right? Those are all algorithms, which are AI, that are controlling what you see, what you don't see, when you see it, and there's some kind of goal set behind that. And I think that the exciting thing for me is that people are starting to become more aware of that, and holding those who have made poor decisions around that more accountable. And I think that we're seeing a shift now in terms of using and understanding what these technologies can do, and pointing the ship in a direction that is more responsible and more for the public good. And people are voting with their wallets a lot. I believe in the free market, and ultimately the companies that have the best intentions with the right combination of technology, those are going to be the ones that end up winning out in the end. And it's the more people that start to ask those questions and think critically about where we want things to go, and stand up and have a voice and conversations with their friends and family, that's how I think we're going to get to the best place and the best outcome for what's coming.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't realize most things are linear. And if you understand things from a creator standpoint and how things are connected, they're linear and feed the next piece of creation. And I don't know, I've always had this thing of things being linear. And that's kind of my process is how to birth or rebirth anything. So I don't know, very, very interesting. That's I didn't realize that your technology was that in depth, but like I said, I'd love to have a conversation outside of this and see what's up. So mom and dad, you said your dad was a physicist, very smart guy. And, what is your thought process every day to like drive down this road and, hey, I'm here. I created this AI. What is the continuing passion and goal for you as a person?
My goal is to create to help people. What that creation is, I found, can take many forms. When I was younger, it was, creating films that had stories that would inspire people and inspire emotions and feelings. As I got older, it was to build technologies that could help people. I think one of the exciting things, and this is getting a little bit out there, but the technology that we've built are helping the largest companies around the world do really good things, right? If you can take a talented group of people and make them more efficient and more effective, that means that they can innovate in their own ways faster and better and more effectively. And that's a force multiplication effect. So, it means more cures to diseases, means, faster rockets to Mars. It means, better education for the world. And then there's also the creative outlet that I have, at least right now, which is, the writing and writing the books. And one of the best pieces of advice that I received when I was in college, my first semester, by one of my film professors, Charles Ramirez Berg is his name. And he ended up mentoring me, and we were having conversations once a week in the evenings, and I would show him, my most recent films, and we would talk about them. And he actually was the guy that discovered Robert Rodriguez, which was kind of fun. But he told me something that has stuck with me. And what he said was, tell the story that only you can tell. And at the time, that was something that I related very much to just the filmmaking. And, I'm a big fan of action movies. My top favorite movies are probably James Bond and The Terminator and The Matrix and 300. So I love action movies. And, as a young person, it was always the goal of mine to produce something like that. And quickly what I realized is that, after hearing that advice and thinking about it and looking back on it now, the stories that I am the only one that could tell are unique, and that's true for everybody, right? And it's more about paying attention to what your stories are and letting them come naturally versus trying to force something. Maybe one day I will make one of those action movies, but for right now, it's trying to take some of this knowledge and wisdom that I've learned through my journey of self-exploration and share it with people through my Your Answers book, or it's to build these powerful technologies that can help accelerate the capabilities of organizations in a business sense, and use that innovation to drive the next wave of education for the world, right? Because it's not a far jump to say, hey, we're going to personalize this sales or marketing message to an individual, to go one step further and say, you're a child who has a passion for physics or mathematics or social sciences, whatever it may be. Here's your personalized and tailored education path that will get you exactly to where you want to be with the specialized niche field of your choosing that will make you feel fulfilled and enjoy your life and add value to the human race. That's a pretty cool place to be in an exciting direction.
Nice. Well, you definitely clean up environments, because I think a lot of businesses get caught up in their own environment and they have blinders on within that environment. So if you can make them aware of those kind of things, that's a plus in itself, not to count the 300 other things that you could line up behind that. So I get it, man. It's very, very interesting, and congratulations to you for being out front with this. And if we want the book, tell us a little bit about where we find the book, where we find information on you and so forth.
So the book, it's available for purchase now on Amazon. I'm on LinkedIn, on Twitter, but I don't post a whole lot on social media because I'm working all the time, but you can find me both those places. John Byron Hanby.
Cool. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show, John. It's a good conversation, and we'll get this thing tight. And thanks, John. And I'm John Edmonds Cosma, the CEO of Bang Productions.